Welcome to the Go Find Out podcast. I'm Jennifer Jelliff Russell, author, speaker, and entrepreneur, bringing you actionable ideas and interviews with awesome women to help you pursue your dreams and achieve your goals. You can find more episodes of the Go Find Out podcast by visiting gofindoutpodcast.com. Enjoy the show and go find out. Welcome to the Go Find Out podcast, episode number 30. I'm your host, Jennifer Jelliff Russell. Today is a solo episode, so there won't be a guest, but I will be talking about something that I think is a huge reason a lot of people don't move forward with their goals, and that is the myth of overnight success. But before we get into that, I wanted to try something new this week. I've been wondering what I could offer to you awesome listeners who support this podcast on Ko-fi, which is kind of like Patreon, only instead of giving monthly, Ko-fi allows you to offer one-time financial support to the show. An obvious thing to offer is a monthly bonus episode for those who give a few dollars. So I will be adding something along those lines to my Ko-fi page. But I also wanted to offer something else that's a little more unique yet ties into the show. So I've decided to create a guided meditation on kicking your fears to the curb, and I'll offer that on Ko-fi for $3. Now, again, that's not a monthly payment. It's just a one-time $3 payment for that particular digital download. And that $3 helps me to continue creating and producing this show rather than stepping back into traditional employment. So you can find the link for my Ko-fi page to support this podcast in the show notes, or you can visit ko-fi.com/GoFindOutPodcast. And just in case you're not sure that guided meditation is something that would be beneficial to you or would be your thing, at the end of this episode, there'll be a little example of what that guided meditation track will be like with a guided meditation on goal manifestation. But don't worry, if you're not into meditation, you can just skip that altogether because it's at the end of this episode. Personally, I believe in the idea of manifestation simply because those who picture their goals are much more likely to achieve those goals than those who don't. And I don't know if you know this, but even Olympic gold medalists and Olympic athletes actually use visualization in their training to help them become even better physically at their particular sport, which is pretty cool. So if it works for Olympian gold medalists, then I think it'll probably help you as well. So stick around after the show to try it out. And, maybe do it while you're not driving or walking so that you can close your eyes and get the full experience while still being safe. All right, let's get to the meat of the show and talk about the myth of overnight success. Chances are you probably know what I mean when I talk about overnight success and how it's a myth. All of you have seen it and most likely been negatively affected by it. It's the headlines that scream things like, author's debut novel shoots to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, or musical prodigy gets a record deal for first song, or innovative business rakes in millions in the first week, or TikTok influencer earns $2 million for their viral video. All of these headlines suggest that these folks achieved overnight success. The problem is, it's simply not true. That writer probably worked on that debut novel for months or years before it got picked up by a publisher. Hell, it might not even be their first book, but rather just their first book published under a pen name or with a new publisher. Same with a musical prodigy. Do you think that musician sat down and wrote a chart-topping tune in one night? Come on. It might feel like that's what's being suggested by the headline, but it's simply not the real story. The same goes with the other two examples. The business owner with the thriving business, it took them time to come up with that idea, not to mention getting all the business licenses in place and building out whatever that business's infrastructure is. And that TikTok influencer probably made quite a few videos before the one that went viral. They might even have multiple accounts across a ton of social media platforms, and that's just the one that hit it big. So all of those examples have one thing in common, and that's that when you first hear about them, you assume that they're an overnight success, that they are so amazing at what they do that they just put something out into the world and it caught on the first try without them doing any hard work for it, that they created something overnight that picked up like wildfire and now they're successful and you're not. And that's the rub, right? That's where we run into problems. We see these folks who we think are overnight successes, and we think to ourselves, I'll never be that good, so why do I keep trying? Or, what am I doing wrong that I haven't found success like them? Then we start to question our own talents or worthiness, and some of us give up. I have absolutely fallen into this trap with my own writing goals. I wrote my first book back in 2012 and self-published it. I didn't hire a professional editor. I didn't hire a professional cover designer. I simply had some friends and family look it over for editing suggestions, then hit the publish button, expecting amazing results. You see, I'd seen all those headlines back then about how self-publishing was making people rich. Folks were writing and publishing their first books and then seeming to, sell thousands of copies, and I definitely wanted in on that. But then, when I published my book, I got crickets. Nobody was buying. What I'd failed to realize was that these self-published, or what's now called indie authors, might have been publishing for the first time, but many of them had been working on their books for years. Some of them had several books to publish at once, or quite a few books in a series already, and were simply hitting publish rather than continuing to wait for a traditional publisher to say yes. They didn't necessarily just write the book and throw it out into the world like I did. And for those who did, most got the same results that I did. Crickets. So no, the writers who were seeing success, they weren't successful overnight. It just appeared that way. They'd been writing for years and now simply had the opportunity to publish their books just when readers were becoming more interested in ebooks. It may have looked like overnight success, from my perspective anyway, but if you asked one of those indie authors, they would tell you just how many months or years went into writing and revising each book. Unfortunately, I did not bother to dig any further into seeing them as overnight successes, and after writing one more book in a different series, I stepped away from publishing. I'd let the myth of overnight success crush my dream of publishing my books. Now, looking back, I realized that if I had just stuck with it, written more books, and had them professionally edited, and then continued to publish them, I too could have reached a certain level of success. Having learned from that, you'd think that I'd immediately apply that lesson to other areas of my life, like starting a business or this podcast. But alas, the myth of overnight success is strong in today's culture. I fully admit that I started both the podcast and my business thinking that they would immediately take off because I saw other people being successful, and to all appearances that success had occurred overnight. But that's just not how it works. Success takes work and effort. You have to put in the time, and you can't give up just because you're not immediately successful. So let me share how I've been shoving back against that feeling of failure when I see others who appear to be an overnight success. Following this method might, at the very least, keep you from feeling like a failure, and at the most, it will help you to keep pushing toward your own goals. So here's what I do. Whenever I hear about someone suddenly being successful at something that I've been trying to achieve, I stop and ask myself the following questions. 1, how much work did they put into achieving that goal that's being glossed over or not mentioned at all? And 2, how many times has this person tried to achieve this goal before? The first question helps me to get a better grasp on the reality of what's actually being accomplished. When you think about it, it's actually kind of shitty when someone works really hard towards something for years, and then when they finally achieve their goal, it gets reported as if they did one thing overnight and suddenly they're a success. And before you start thinking of situations in which an artist or business got mentioned by an influencer or a celebrity and it shot that artist to overnight stardom or business success, remember that the artist or the owner of that business was putting in the work long before they got quote-unquote discovered by the influencer or celebrity. For me, stepping back and asking what kind of work really went into achieving a goal gives me a clearer picture of reality. It also helps me remember that hard work and tenacity do get rewarded over time. It just doesn't look like it in our society because we hold up these fake overnight successes. The second question that I ask myself, how many times has this person tried to achieve this goal before, helps me to remember that for some folks, their overnight success might actually be their 3rd, 4th, or 10th try at something. Think about young Michael Jordan, who didn't make his school's varsity team on that first try. Or Oprah, who was fired from one of her first television jobs and told that she was unfit for television. Can you believe that? Did you know that Katy Perry didn't start out as a solo pop artist? Yeah, she first started out in gospel music and had 2 other music contracts that fell through or failed before she found commercial success with I Kissed a Girl. So my point is, on the surface, if you only look at when these folks succeeded, or you look at these folks' careers today, it might seem like they succeeded in their first try, but that's simply not true. When you dig a little deeper, you see that it took years of hard work and dedication to their goals before they saw success. So when you see someone succeeding at achieving a goal that's similar to yours, rather than feeling jealous or assuming that you don't have that same kind of talent that they do, instead ask yourself how many times they've tried at that goal. A great example of this is when I look at the world of podcasting. Sometimes I feel really behind because I'm not getting thousands of downloads per episode. Then I hear about someone who started a show and they have 1,000 downloads on their 2nd episode or 3rd episode. In these instances, I have to step back and ask myself those two questions. How much work did that podcast host put into their show? Chances are they probably worked really hard on making everything in those first episodes amazing. And who knows how long they took to work on those episodes, right? Also, it's likely that they put a lot of time and effort into building up to a podcast launch so that they had listeners waiting for their first episodes to drop. So instead of getting jealous or feeling like I'm inadequate because I don't have those same download numbers, I should ask myself what I can learn from them that made them successful, and also remember that it's likely they put a ton of time and effort into their show behind the scenes that I'm just not seeing. The other question to ask is how many other shows have they started and gained experience from? I've noticed a lot of people try different types of podcasts before they land on the one that's successful, and that's the one that they stick with. So rather than letting the myth of someone else's overnight success get you down or make you want to quit the pursuit of your own goals, take a moment to ask yourself these questions and gain a better understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes of that overnight success. And having that knowledge will help you reach your own goals by pushing forward and continuing to put in the work and effort your dreams require to come to fruition. All right, that's all I have for today's show. If you're interested in trying out a little guided meditation, stick around after this. And definitely join me next week when I interview Dr. Jen Welter about her experience of becoming the first woman to coach in professional football. Until then, go find out. Thanks for listening to the show today. I hope you found the information beneficial and that it helps you tackle your own Go Find Out goals. You can find more episodes and the show transcripts at gofindoutpodcast.com. You can also let me know what you thought of the show by tweeting me at GFOpodcast or follow me on Instagram at GoFindOutPodcast. That's it for today. Now go find out. Thanks for sticking around to check out this bonus meditation to help you manifest your goals. This is just a 5-minute guided meditation to get you started toward believing more in yourself and in the awesome things you're able to accomplish. Before we start, I recommend finding a quiet space to sit where you can close your eyes and focus solely on this meditation. It's also good to go ahead and think of a goal that you want to focus on. It could be a big career goal, or maybe landing a big promotion. Or maybe it's starting your own company, or writing and publishing a best-selling book, running a marathon, or getting into a new hobby. Whatever it is, decide what goal you want to focus on for this meditation before you start. All right, let's begin. Take a deep, cleansing breath and let it out in a long whoosh. Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, try to let the worries of your day fall away. Another deep breath in. Exhale, dropping those responsibilities off your shoulders. Try to continue your even breathing, drawing in life-giving breath, then exhaling all the negative thoughts and feelings that fog your mind. Relax your shoulders. Relax your face muscles. Find that mental space where you're aware of your thoughts. Notice the mental chatter going on, and then just slowly let those internal voices fade away until it's just you standing in an empty mental space of the here and now. If some of your stray thoughts come back, politely escort them out again. This is Club You, and they don't have a pass to enter this space right now. Take another cleansing breath in and let it out again. On your next inhale, think of a goal that you have. Don't let the mental chatter back in. Just think of that goal. It might seem like a really big, out of reach, or impossible goal right now. But these are not words that belong in this private club within your mind. As you focus on your goal, Picture what it would look like to actually be in the act of accomplishing that goal. If it's to run a marathon, picture yourself crossing the finish line, receiving your medal, and smiling for a post-race photo. If it's writing a book, imagine yourself typing the words, "The End." Imagine yourself sitting for author signings for your fans. If you want to be a speaker, picture yourself commanding the stage, smiling out at a sea of faces. Imagine that moment you finish, thank the crowd, and they burst into applause. Picture attaining whatever your goal is. Experience the feelings that you'd have in that moment: glee, elation, excitement. Try to experience that feeling now as you imagine yourself in your mind's eye achieving your goal. Now, take a mental snapshot of that moment. Freeze that moment in your mind and try to capture the feeling that goes along with that moment. Hold on to that moment. Cement it in your mind. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Whenever you have doubts about reaching your goal, pull out that snapshot. Whenever a naysayer says you can't do it, pull up that moment in your mind and remember that feeling of accomplishing your goal. As you next inhale, tell yourself, "I can achieve my goal." And as you exhale, release any negative thoughts and feelings around your ability to achieve that goal. Take another deep breath in and tell yourself, "I will achieve my goal." Then mentally picture that snapshot of achieving that goal. And as you exhale, start to back mentally out of this headspace. While still keeping your eyes closed, begin to notice your surroundings again. Let the sounds around you reach your brain. Notice any scents in the air. Before you open your eyes, pull up that snapshot of you achieving your goal one more time. Picture it. Really experience how that moment will make you feel. Now open your eyes and keep that mental snapshot tucked away in the back of your mind. You can pull it up anytime you need to during the day. Be reminded of your ability to reach that goal. Now take on the day, keeping in mind that you have this secret mental weapon, and you can bring it out anytime that you need a reminder that you can achieve your goals. You've got this. Now get out there and go find out. If you enjoyed this 5-minute guided meditation on manifesting your goals, definitely check out the Go Find Out podcast Ko-fi page for a guided meditation on kicking your fears to the curb. You can find the links to that meditation in the show notes.